He overheard my Spanish hookup call him a loser while I was on a business trip. When I got back home, have you ever found yourself in a situation where everything seems to be falling apart? Well, let me tell you about my recent experience. My name is Emily Robinson, female 26, and my husband is Arthur Brown, male 29. My husband and I met at Cardiff. I had gone to visit my friend Mia, female 26, and her Nana. Arthur lived there with his parents. Well, his parents and my friend's Nana were somehow friends, or must I say they were family friends. One day, Mia's Nana had invited them to have dinner with us that time Arthur had recently come back from the university. Well, Mia's home was like my own home. After the passing of my parents, Mrs. Nova, Mia's Nana, took me in when she saw that my extended family members didn't want to take me in. Then I moved out when I got a job in the city and found my own apartment. I will forever be grateful to that kind soul. The dinner went well. My Nana, or let me say Mia's Nana, had introduced me to Arthur since it was my first time seeing him, and we got along pretty well. Since I was visiting in Cardiff and Arthur was also visiting, we decided to exchange numbers so we would be in contact so that we would be able to get to know each other. Arthur is a humble, respectful, and enthusiastic man. He was so gentle. Even the way he was speaking, his voice was soft but carried a lot of authority. We became friends since then. We would check up on each other every time when we got a chance. He was my pillar and strength. He was the best friend I had ever had. He showed the most genuine love and care. He had that gentle, tender love, and he knew how to treat a woman. He valued communication, loyalty, and respect a lot. Our friendship was just everything and more. He was what most girls want and pray for. We were friends up until he finished studying in university for his honors degree and graduated. I was so proud of him when he was called to the podium to collect his qualification in science. Being a business scientist was always his dream. I was glad that he was actually a few steps away from achieving his goals. That time he had been offered an internship in a data science company. It wasn't a lot, but it was a start, and I was so happy for him. On his graduation celebration dinner, his mother had hosted a dinner to celebrate his graduation and the new internship opportunity. His parents were so proud, they wouldn't have to say anything to see that they were truly proud of their son. So that night, Arthur asked to take me out the following day before he went to work. I agreed to go out with him. I was already feeling the guy, but I was too afraid to confess my feelings for him because I was scared of getting rejected. The following day, he confessed his feelings for me. I was not expecting it, nor was I ready for it. I had thought that maybe he only took me as a friend, not someone he would actually share his love with. On another hand, I was happy at the fact that he had confessed his feelings for me. I also got a chance to confess mine, knowing that I was safe from being rejected. He wouldn't reject me when he had also confessed his undying love for me, right? I also told him how I felt about it. Since then, we officialized our relationship. We actually promoted our relationship from being friends to being lovers. I was ecstatic. We dated for a year and a half, then he proposed. His parents, along with my Nana, were so happy at the fact that we had actually met their hopes. I was surprised when Nana told me that she had been praying that I date Arthur because he was a good, humble, and respectful young man with a good sense of humor. I just couldn't believe Nana, but I was glad and felt blessed at the fact that she had wished and prayed for nothing but the best for me. I remember when Arthur's mom was so over the moon and busy gushing about the wedding. She actually wanted us to make her the wedding planner. It was somehow really funny to see her wanting to be hands-on like that, but Arthur didn't want her to be. So we had hired a wedding planner to take care of everything that we would need. I was focusing on having the best dress and best suit for Arthur. That's how happy I was with my wedding, and I couldn't wait for it to happen. 2 months later, we got married, and it was the happiest day of our lives. I was glad that Arthur didn't change when we got married or when we started dating. I mean, most people tend to change when they get what they want, but Arthur kept treating me like his friend and a lover. His love for me, or our love for each other, was not hidden. It was just visible to everyone to see that we were so much in love. We actually became like siblings because of the way we were free and sometimes crazy towards each other. Sure, we had our fair share of ups and downs, arguments just like any other couple, but we maintained the communication. We made sure to not go to bed while angry at one another. Another thing, we would just kiss and make up when we had been having an altercation or argument. Our intimate moments were always on a high level. I don't know if I was saying that because I loved and I still love Arthur, which is funny because I love a person who screwed me over in a most painful and unforgivable way. I think I loved our intimate moments because he was the one who broke my virginity. He was my first true lover and my first true friend. All along, I had been having or finding fake friends and playing boys who only wanted me to sleep with them, so that they could discard me like an old used cloth or tea bag. I had my doubts about Arthur when we first started dating, but the time that we had spent in getting to know each other while we were friends really helped because I got into a relationship with him, knowing what I was outing myself into. It was nothing but bliss. Time passed, I started getting bored. I mean, I am a writer and I own a publishing company, so I was always in the house because I was not working for any company but myself. Arthur was always at work and he would come back later when he had knocked off. He didn't change, you know. He was the same husband that I had fallen in love with, and my love for him kept growing each and every time when I looked at him. I loved the fact that he was very much supportive and always there for me when I needed him. I don't know what really came over me when I destroyed the only good thing I had going. So when time passed, I recently went on a business trip. I had a client that I had to meet up with who wanted their book to be published by me. It was supposed to be a 4-day trip, but my husband had already planned or extended my trip, so it was a business and leisure trip. I really needed it, you know. Just some time to myself to relax and unwind. My husband was very thoughtful because I was all about work, 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 and never resting. He told me that I was working too much and had put too much energy and dedication to the book that I was writing and the company, so I needed some time off. I was happy at the fact that he had actually thought of my well-being because I tried telling him that I wanted to first finish the book, then I would go on a trip after, but he refused. He told me that the book and the company won't have anyone to finish it when I get sick and get admitted to the hospital. You know, sometimes I hate how he was always right about things. I was working a lot to a point that I didn't even get time for myself. But I can't complain because writing is what I love and what I'm good at. It's the only thing that makes me think about only good things. It was actually like my meditation process. So I took his offer and went to the business trip that needed my attention in South Africa, meaning I will also just stay there for a few weeks just to relax my mind and body. I fell in love with that country the first time I had visited with my parents when they were still alive, along with Mia and her Nana. Since then, I promised myself that once I start affording, I would go back to visit it again. And to my luck, the business took me there. The weather is so good and warm, it is a very relaxing country, despite the news that we would hear about it. South Africa is a very precious and welcoming country. I love everything about it, and I decided that during my trip, once I have done with what really took me to that country, which was business, I would travel and explore South Africa. During my trip, I went to a province called Zulu Natal or something like that. I'm a person who loves African cultures, and I must say that the Zulu and the Sotho culture really took my heart, from the activities that they do, food they eat, and their cultural sites, the way they dance. It's just so amazing. I really enjoyed my trip to South Africa, and I'm going to go back to visit again. I want to explore more about South African cultures, and maybe I will find myself learning a few African languages. While I was still enjoying the warm weather in Durban in South Africa, even going to the beach was enjoyable. So I went to this corner that sells Zulu traditional food around where I was renting. I bumped into a very handsome, well-built, and humble guy when I had just placed my order. The guy asked if he could join my table since the restaurant was full and I was sitting alone. I gave the guy a go-ahead and he joined me. We waited for our food over some light conversation. During my trip, I made a terrible mistake. I had an affair. I thought I could keep it a secret, you know, but I guess nothing stays under the carpet for too long. I had picked up that he was also not from South Africa, but he was from Spain, and he was there for leisure because of the warm weather in Durban. We talked a lot and even shared our South African numbers since we had found out that we were renting in the same place in La Lucia. The guy introduced himself as Andrew Watkins, male, 32. He was a good company and a funny guy. He told me that he loved visiting African countries. We shared a lot, and I would say that I enjoyed my stay in South Africa. I had actually found something interesting to write about in my book. Andrew and I talked up until our orders were called since we were not eating in. I wanted to enjoy my African traditional meal indoors, which was why I had ordered it as a takeaway. Andrew asked to give me a lift from the traditional food corner to my apartment that I was renting. I couldn't decline his offer because I had taken a cab when I went to that corner. There was just something attractive with him, and I still don't know what actually drove me to Andrew. Maybe it was his charms or something. I don't know. I was so taken by him. For some time, I had forgotten about my husband that I had left back at home. Andrew became my foreign friend that I had never had. We traveled together around the province. I really enjoyed his company. So one day, Andrew asked that we visit the newly opened bar near where we were staying. I couldn't say no. So we went, we drank, danced, and had so much fun. When it was time to go back to my apartment, I don't know what happened, but Andrew and I kissed, and it felt so right. I don't know why it felt like that, but it felt so good. To my surprise, I didn't even feel guilty when I woke up in Andrew's apartment. I knew that I was doing something that had jeopardized my relationship with Arthur, but I felt like I needed to explore other intimate moments so that I would know how it felt like to be intimate with another person. I mean, in intimate moments, I had only shared them with Arthur only. I didn't know how it felt like to explore other intimate styles and positions, and Andrew made me experience all that. I knew that if my husband was to find out, I would lose a lot and hell would break loose. I was doing what was against my marriage law and my vows that I had made in front of the Lord, my family, and friends. I was jeopardizing my marriage and my relationship with Arthur. I love my husband, or must I say my ex-husband, so much, but I also needed to feel myself for once. I wanted to explore other things and explore a new venture of intimacy. Andrew's drive was really on another level. I felt like it was my first time having such a great intimate moment. Sure, my husband was explorative and did me so great, but Andrew's exploration was top-notch. I enjoyed every moment with him, from how he was exploring my body, the way he was touching me, kissing me with his soft and tender lips. I knew there and then that I had caught some feelings for the guy. Our secret affair went on since I had extended my stay in South Africa so that I would have enough time with Andrew. I think I had fallen for the guy, or am I wrong? I felt like the guy knew me and what my body needed without even asking for it. His intimate drive drove me sane into a point that it somehow felt like I had been brainwashed because I couldn't even think about the marriage that I was putting at risk. I was jeopardizing my marriage, knowing very well that if Arthur was to find out, I would be husbandless and maybe divorced. Little did I know that my husband had actually planned something drastic for me. I was busy enjoying my moments with Andrew. Little did I know my husband somehow found out about my affair and things took a turn for the worst. I was enjoying my time away, exploring new places, plus it was my last day in South Africa. I knew that I had to go back home when suddenly I got a notification on my phone. It's a text from my husband, and let's just say it wasn't a happy one. He had somehow discovered my secret and was absolutely furious. I knew Arthur when he was angry, and I knew when he was enraged, and in the text that he had sent me, he was really enraged. He wrote that he had sent me on the trip because he wanted me to relax and have some good alone time and take a break from writing and running a company. But that was the thanks he gets by going outside our marriage and committing adultery. He then said a lot of hurtful words that made me feel so much guilt in my heart. My mind had come back to functioning well. Mind you that Tyne Andrew had gone back to Europe. Not to sound selfish or whatever, but I missed Andrew so much. Well, more like I missed his S***. I know it was really wrong of me, but I just couldn't help it. Andrew was giving me more than what I was getting from my own husband. He knew how to explore certain parts of the body. His touches were magical, and I would always melt on his touch. It was like he had gone to school for his experience and skills in intimacy. You know when someone had passed with straight A's at school for some subject that they loved? That was Andrew. It was like he had some sort of an intimacy qualification. Was I falling hard for the guy? But I don't think so. I missed Andrew to a point that I actually found myself trying to call him, but it went straight to voicemail. I had even forgotten that I only had his South African number and not his actual number. I was frustrated because I needed him, at least to talk to him just to hear his voice. I decided to check him on social media, but I didn't find anything since he didn't even share his forename. I didn't know what to do because I really needed the guy. I ended up helping myself while saying Andrew's name. I thought I could keep it a secret, but somehow my husband found out. And let me tell you, he was not happy. But wait, it gets worse. As if finding out about my affair wasn't bad enough, my husband decided to take things to the next level. He blocked all my cards, leaving me completely stranded without any access to money. Talk about being screwed. I couldn't believe it. Here I am, in a foreign place, with no way to pay for anything. It was like a nightmare come true. I had no idea how I was going to survive the rest of my trip. As if the emotional turmoil wasn't enough, my husband decided to take things a step further. He blocked all my cards. Yes, you heard that right. He cut off my access to any financial resources. Now I know what you're thinking. Why would my husband do something like that? Well, let's just say he wanted to make sure I felt the consequences of my actions. And boy, did he succeed. I couldn't help him. I had thought he would at least wait for me to get home before doing such a drastic act. So there I was, stuck in a foreign country, with no money and no way to get home. It's safe to say that this was definitely not how I envisioned my trip to turn out. Yes, I had wronged Arthur in the worst possible way, but wouldn't he at least try and wait for me to get home before doing that? Till today, I'm still trying to figure out how Arthur found out about my affair with Andrew. Even though today I regret everything. I even regret going to South Africa, though I did not regret going to South Africa like I had planned, which was only a business trip, and I regret that I had accepted my husband's offer to have a trip, because now it had destroyed everything that me and Arthur had been through. You know, I tried booking the plane ticket using my cards, but they were all declining. It was so embarrassing and humiliating to hear a person telling you that your card was declining. Mind you, that time I didn't even have any friends nor siblings, but I missed him so much. From there, I knew that I was completely screwed. I have no money to pay for my accommodation, food, or even transportation back home. I feel trapped and helpless. I was lucky because I had cash that I had withdrawn, which helped me pay for the rent. Well, I moved to the most affordable flat in Durban near the beach. Andrew and I couldn't get a chance to get to know each other on a deeper level. It was like the only thing that had connected us was intimacy, and it was really dumb and stupid of me to not try and find out more about the guy. I just couldn't believe Arthur. I mean, how he could do something like that to the person he claimed to love. I was so heartbroken to the point that I took the last money that I had and went to find a cheaper place to crash until I had found the way to get back home. It was a wake-up call for me. I never thought that my actions would have such severe consequences. I took my husband's trust for granted, and now I am paying the price. One thing I would say I was grateful for throughout my relationship with Arthur is the fact that he took his time to teach me about the importance of money and money itself. He would always tell me to always have at least $200 or $300 notes with me, which would be hard cash just in case I get in some sort of trouble or I face a problem. That money would help me for backup when I face a situation. That time in South Africa, Arthur's life lessons came in handy, and I appreciated them at that time because I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have any cash with me. I tried calling him, but his phone was ringing unanswered. I needed answers on why he did what he did to me and how he found out about what I was doing in South Africa. I was so angry at him to a point that I even felt like I would slap him across his face if he was closer. I know what I did, and I'm not justifying what I did, but what my husband or ex-husband did was too extreme and kind of low even for himself. He should have waited for me to come back right. As if that wasn't enough, the money that I had was about to run out. I called my friend Mia to help me, but I had run out of airtime. Mind you, I wanted to call the landline number at Nana's house since she would sometimes not hear the phone ringing. My hopes were gone. I was about to be stranded and homeless in a foreign country because my husband had decided to just block all my bank accounts, including the one that I had been saving on. Talk about a bummer. A month passed and I was still in South Africa. I had a hope that maybe Arthur would at least call me and tell me to come back home or at least unblock my cards. If he had blocked the joint account, I would understand because there is both our saving on that account. But no, the big man blocked my personal accounts, including the offshore account. I had tried calling him with the small airtime that I had bought, but he didn't answer my call. When I called Mia for help, she told me that she was going to ask Nana for some cash to at least transfer to me so I can go back home. But days and weeks passed and still nothing from Mia. At first I got worried and thought that maybe something had happened to her because even her phone was no longer available. I got really worried. A lot was on my mind and I was thinking of the worst only. I prayed so hard and asked God to protect them from Arthur because I really didn't know what he would do to them just to see me suffer. Later that day, Andrew organized a transport for me to the place that he had rented. You know that moment when you and the other person just do things roughly, recklessly, and fast, like you have been yearning for each other for too long. That was what happened when Andrew and I saw each other. It was like we had missed each other so bad to a point that we couldn't even say hi to each other. We made sweet but reckless lovemaking. He gave a sweet and high orgasm. I don't really know when last I had such an orgasm. Or maybe I can say I have had such an orgasm. In my whole dating and marriage life, I had never gotten or experienced such an extent and mind-blowing intimacy. We made a lot of S*** to a point that I had even forgotten about my nonchalant husband. After we were done acting like we had been missing each other for years. When our session ended, we ended up taking a shower together. I was actually the one who needed a cold shower because Andrew really did a number on me down there. You really explored every inch of my body with his tender, loving, and soft hands. I really loved it, you know. I even forget that I was married to the love of my life, but he was boring and too busy to even explore our S*** life. I started hanging out a lot with Andrew. He was really a very great distraction, and he made me feel so much alive again. I know it was really wrong of me to get attached to a stranger that I had met in a foreign country, but I just couldn't help it. Andrew made me feel noticed and appreciated, you know. He made sure to always compliment me, even the smallest things I did. He noticed me. The way Andrew and I got close, it was somehow scary because I had become carefree and cared less about other things. It was like my mind was moving from one dimension to another whenever I was with Andrew, and I loved that feeling of feeling free and full of life. The more we spent time together, the more I was falling for him. He was the guy I had been praying for and wanted in my life. Most of the time I would feel lonely, and like there was a missing puzzle that would make my heart full and complete whenever Andrew was not around, or he would be busy checking up on me the whole day. At first, I justified my affair with Andrew by telling myself that it was just a little harmless fun. But as time went on, I realized that I had fallen deeply in love with him. I knew that I had to end things with Arthur after the stunt that he had pulled, but I didn't know how to do it without hurting him. One side of my heart still loved Arthur while the other was still falling harder for Andrew. Was I in love with Andrew? Well, I think so, because I couldn't live without at least hearing the guy's voice. Was I acting like a Delilah? As much as I wanted to set Arthur free, my heart wouldn't let me to. I don't know what was happening to me. I was stuck in between two men, and both of them meant something to me. They had that special place in my heart, So I was stuck in between a rock and a very hard place. What do you think I should have done? I know I should have released one man and not lead him on, but I loved them both, and I didn't know what to do about that. I still had faith that Arthur would change and become the husband and lover that I had fallen in love with, not the boring and busy grandpa wannabe that he was. So I continued to see both men, hoping that one of them would eventually realize that they were the one for me. But as the months went by, I only became more and more confused and unhappy. Andrew had started distancing himself also, like we were no longer seeing each other more often like how we used to, even though he was still getting time or a chance to call or text me to check if I was doing okay. As much as that was still something compared to what Arthur was doing, it felt like I was losing a piece of myself. One day I was spending the night with Andrew. Yes, I was still in South Africa, but I had planned to go back home the following week, when Andrew also goes back to Spain. The way my relationship with Andrew was a close relationship, I had told him about my husband and how my marriage was. Mind you, at that time he was also married, but his wife passed on after she had delivered his last-born child. It is a very sad story to share or listen to, but I don't know what was drawing me to Andrew. It was like the more we shared our life stories, the more we got closer and closer to each other, and I was falling much harder and dangerous to the guy. As I was chilling with Andrew in his rented apartment, he went to the bathroom as the person who was going to come back sooner. So the time he went to the bathroom, we were talking about my marriage and how much I was not satisfied sexually. While Andrew was in the bathroom, I received a call from Arthur, which really took me by surprise because I had thought he had forgotten about me and the fact that he had a wife that he pulled a stunt on and left her stranded in a foreign country. I was on a call with Arthur, hearing him apologizing and asking me when I will come back home. Andrew got back speaking and didn't notice that I was on a call with someone. He asked me when will I stand up for myself and leave the loser that I had married because no sane person would block their wife's important accounts, while knowing that the wife was outside the country, then act like a girl just because he had found out about the night I had with him, Andrew. He kept talking. I tried signaling him that I was on the call with someone else, but the guy just ignored me and continued telling me that I had married a shame of a husband and called him a loser again. On the other hand, Arthur was hearing the whole thing imagined. I was just tongue-tied. I didn't know how to respond and who to respond to because on the other side, Arthur was busy asking why I had told our marital issues to my affair. Then Arthur, started throwing tantrums at me and telling me, well, more like demanding me to go back home if I didn't want him to be the one to fetch me from South Africa. Arthur was super enraged to a point that I felt like if I was near him, I don't know and can't imagine what would have happened to me. Arthur is a very private person, and he doesn't want his life matters to be known by the outside world. So I had made the worst mistake ever for sharing my marriage predicament with Andrew. The following week, I went back to the United States. Well, being in South Africa really helped me focus more on Angela's book that she wanted my company to publish. So instead of virtual communications, we would meet up and go to details with other information that was missing or change certain things. You know what Arthur did was somehow a blessing in disguise. So I knew that as I was going back to the States, I had to publish the book first thing when I got there because we were done with everything that was needed to complete the book. When I got home, I found Arthur looking like he was ready to murder anything that made him angry. I knew that I had to be honest with him without waiting for him to even ask about my abomination. I had to tell him that I was in love with Andrew, but I didn't know how he would react. I know it was very wrong of me to hide such an abomination and serious thing from him, and for him to find out the way he did. But I was confused and didn't know what to do. So I continued leading him on, even though my heart was slowly falling out of love with Arthur. I knew there and then that my marriage had been ruined, and there was no chance of survival in it. After I had confessed everything to Arthur, I decided to move out and go to Mia's place for a couple of days while I would be looking for a new apartment not far from the company. So there was this day when I was at work, in my company, busy publishing Angela's book. I was called by one of my editors telling me that something was happening outside. I had to rush and check it out. It didn't even come to me that my car was being repossessed. I asked the people who were busy repossessing my car why they were doing that. Yes, the car was brought by Arthur as a gift on our first-year anniversary, and I had thought that maybe it was fully paid out. The trucker who was taking my car told me that the owner of the car had asked them to take it. I tried telling them that I was the owner of the car, but to my surprise, the car wasn't written under my name, meaning the owner of the car that I was driving belonged to Arthur. I just couldn't believe him, So he had decided to take back the car that he had bought for me out of love. Worst part, he decided to send the repossessing company to take the car during office hours in front of my employees so he can make a joke out of me. I think that was just very low, even for him. I had no other choice but to take my work and go back to Mia's house to work from home. When I got home, the first thing that I was greeted with by Mia was if I had checked my socials. Since I had a busy day, I couldn't check my phone. So when I checked it, boom! I was trending, my pictures were all over the internet, and I was being called by names. I really don't know what I really did wrong besides having an affair with Andrew, and somehow fell for him because even today I still feel the wrath of Arthur's revenge. Redditors, please help me. I tried being strong, but I'm failing. What must I do? It's just too much.